Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining to another episode of Physicality of Playing Piano. And today I have my dear friend Alex Montalenti. Alex, thank you so much for finding time. Please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Alex Montalenti. I'm the CEO of RealGrader. We're a digital marketing agency. I was curious about this podcast and how I could impact people who are looking at playing piano, and I'm happy to explore whatever questions you're going to ask me.
I know you are as an expert in implementing different ideas into actions, and I'm really care about the subject through my teaching in the piano of kinesthetic learning. And just kind of like a briefly to share the story with you that I've been playing piano since I was 6 years old, and since that age I've been basically been told what to do. My teachers were telling me, okay, put your hand here, do this, do that, to develop some skills. So being as a child, I really wasn't present why am I doing many things until I found myself preparing for performance with a group of chamber musicians, and I found myself that I cannot play certain passages, like certain advanced music. And I would practice and practice and practice, but I would, like, in 30 minutes I would experience pain in my shoulders. I even stopped thinking about this possibility and opportunity for me to be as performing pianist. So I started full-time teaching. So that injury that I got out of the not being even aware of my way I'm practicing and playing piano actually brought me to the exploration of the subject and actually seeing it in many of my students. So, and I found that there are many common things between body awareness, not just in musicians, it's dancers or people who play in sports seriously, professionally, or even in your personal like training, like when you work and exercise. So I know that you are someone who's reading a lot of books on this subject of self-development and being aware, and you took many courses, and I just wanted to ask your input on this subject. How are you approach the limitation of our bodies and this awareness to take you to the next level?
I think the first thing is to just to really be aware of it, right? I mean, I'm as you spoke, I thought of a couple different occasions in my life. So, I mean, I was born with a bifid thumb, which meant I had 6 fingers on one of my hands. As it turned out, they had to, when I was a little kid, they did surgery to remove one of my thumbs, but instead of removing it, they combined both of the thumbs into one thumb. So my choice was either have plastic surgery to make my thumb look normal and lose the flexibility of my thumb, or merge the two thumbs and have flexibility. So my parents chose to give me the flexibility and later on decide if I wanted to make it look more perfect, let's say. As a kid, I had to learn how to hold a pencil in a way that was different than everybody else. So when I started learning how to write, I couldn't wrap my thumb around the pencil the same way all the other kids could. So I learned to adapt, right? I learned, like, hey, I've got this limitation in my thumb, but I learned to adapt. And the funniest thing is that I ended up having the best handwriting in all my classes,
Mm. That's
right?
amazing.
So it's like that awareness made me extra aware of my limitation, which then in turn turned into a strength. Later on in life, I broke my elbow snowboarding, and the doctors were like, "You're never going to play tennis again." And I was like, I don't know about that. Let me just adapt to how I hold the racket so that I could play tennis. And I continue to play tennis. And to this day, I play tennis. And, I can't play for extended periods of time because, again, I'm aware of what my body's limitations are.
And where is that awareness do you think is coming from? It's like, okay, you know you have a certain limitation, but then what?
I think it's the adapting, right? Like you have to adapt. So I have to adapt. I have to prepare. I might have to do extra stretching or training beforehand. I think that's the biggest thing when I hear you talk about the piano player and you talk about their body, their form. before they sit down to play, they probably have to get aware of their posture. They have to get aware of where their hands lie. They got to get aware of how their hands move. And that awareness could also include, hey, I've got this limitation, or I've got this soreness, or hey, I worked out too hard yesterday, so maybe I got to play differently or think differently or stretch more for more preparation. It starts with the awareness, but then it moves to the preparation or the adjustments or the modifications. The interesting thing is when you talk about this, to me, it applies on everything, right? Like
Like
I'm a
what?
CEO of a company of 40 employees. We've had amazing growth. We're on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. But because I didn't have the proper education on how to be a businessman, I had to learn and adapt, and I had to do things differently and hire coaches and get the training and read extra books and whatever the case may be. You and I both know the potential is limitless, but it's like, how do you prepare? How do you get your mind into the groove? How do you adjust? How do you train? And I think all of that's important to have like that.
Yeah, that's really true what you're saying. And coming back to the body form, this is the very huge thing. Like in any sport, the dancer know, like before you start moving, you have to be in certain posture, right? You have to hold your posture, and especially like I'm teaching my students, piano students, especially the little ones, that you need properly sit at the piano first because it will give you the flexibility of to move, like whether you're playing on the higher register of the piano or lower. But I see like a lot of students who's especially teaching themselves how to play piano, they just want to jump into like learning song, right? They just want to like this shortcut and the instant gratification to, okay, let me learn my song, and then I'm gonna worry about the other things like posture like later on. How did you become aware of that body form? And I'm sure like before you doing a lot of presentation, how do you put yourself in that space, like where you in control of your body posture, so the whatever the message you have to people is going to land in the right space, in the right soil, and it will give you ability to convey the message and also hold the energy right throughout the presentation.
Some of it is making mistakes and then realizing, hey, that didn't go over so well. Like my first video or my first time on stage, it was good, but it wasn't great, and I learned from it.
And
And
how
then
did
I'm
you
like,
learn? Did
oh,
you see a recording of yourself or?
yeah, I did. I mean, I really recorded myself a lot. And then I watched people that were doing it and what were they doing differently. So then I saw, oh, wow, look at how they walked across the stage with confidence, or look at how when they emphasized a point, they stopped on the stage and they maybe crouched over and like engaged with the audience and then made their point. So that's like there was this different emphasis and these different pauses and these different movements. I could see, I mean, everybody wants that instant gratification nowadays. It's like ever since Amazon delivers packages in less than 4 hours, we want everything in less than a couple hours. It's like me and you were watching some of those piano YouTube things that said, learn piano in 4 minutes. It's like, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah,
You're not going to learn,
you can learn one or two notes, maybe
right?
three. Yeah, but
And
it
you're not going to
doesn't give
learn
you.
business. You're not going to learn business in 4 minutes. You're not going to learn tennis in 4 minutes. I mean, all of it takes practice and awareness and studying yourself and looking at how you're doing it and reassessing and repositioning and making modifications. I mean, I'm 46 years old and I'm still in training on how to be a CEO. I'm still in training on how to be a dad. I'm still in training on how to be a boyfriend. It's like the training never stops. But I think it's that taking the inventory on yourself and making the awareness of yourself that it's like, oh, okay, this is where I am now. And I couldn't be here. So what is that going to take? That's going to take practice. Maybe that's going to take a little more discipline on my form, right? Like for me, being a CEO right now, I realized that drinking alcohol even on the weekends wasn't serving me. So I gave it up in April. I realized that waking up at 7 a.m. was not early enough. So I woke up at 6:30. Then I realized that wasn't early enough. Now I wake up at 5 a.m. Right. So it's like I'm making all these adjustments, but it's the awareness, the continual awareness of where you're at.
And
Right.
trying different approaches. But that's
Yeah.
where the kinesthetic learning is coming to, right? It's about taking actions. Yes, the first is awareness, but then kinesthetic is like how you combine that idea and awareness into actually doing, right? So, do you have any suggestion for our listeners? And our listeners could be anyone who wants to be more aware of this body limitation and learn about more of the physicality of piano playing or maybe violin playing or I don't know, anything that has to do with using our body as an instrument. Do you have any suggestion?
I mean, I think when you talk about the kinesthetics, it's like before you create like the perfect structure, it's going to take conscious actions to create that discipline. And I think the awareness that one should have, and this goes with like habits too, and with learning any discipline, is that in the beginning it's going to be a conscious effort to be disciplined, to practice, to notice my hand movement, to notice my posture on stage. That's all going to be conscious work in a sense. But at some point, when it registers, then it's just automatic and it becomes unconscious. You know, like when I watch a beautiful piano player, I'm just like, wow, that's so natural. It's like they're not even thinking about the notes or playing. They're just flow. They're in total flow state. And that's because it's registered so well on a conscious level that now it's completely subconscious and it's just automatic.
Yeah,
And
going
I
from
think,
conscious to subconscious through the action, intentional action. Okay.
yeah, I mean, when you do something enough times, eventually that's unconscious. Like we don't think about brushing our teeth in the morning because we've done it so many times, right? But in the beginning, I have to press on my kids to say, "Hey, brush your teeth, brush it this way. Come on, you forgot to brush your teeth." But by the time you're 46, you're like, "Yeah, I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I do my things, and I go." Right? We drive cars unconsciously, really. If we think about it, we're not consciously driving our cars most of the time. We're just unconsciously driving because we've driven so much. Like we know that route.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the key is if you notice your movements and you notice your body and you make the adjustments and you practice the discipline enough, eventually that will become like kinesthetic. It'll become like unconscious that it'll flow.
And personally, for you, how long it usually take time for you to start to build a new habit? Like when it goes from doing being intentional and conscious about something to driving the car and then you're like, oh, I'm already there. How did I get there?
I think it has different times for different things. Like I know for waking up early, it took me like 3 months to not have to have the alarm clock wake me up. Like I'm at a point where I don't need the alarm clock. Like my brain is just like ding ding, time to wake up, and it's like the same time every day. Some things take years. Like speaking on stage, people think I'm really good, but I'm not professional. I think it varies depending on the art or depending on the science, and also depending on how disciplined you are and how aware you are and how willing you are to adapt and change and mold and learn and expand. If you're resistant, yeah, it's going to take you a while.
It's amazing how much there to learn and go on a different level and deepen into the knowledge of something that I've been doing all my life. Thank you so much for your insight and sharing your experience, and thank you again for your time, for being our guest. And I wish you good luck in your future success and maybe new habits and new possibilities that you're creating for yourself and for your family.
Thank you. You too.